Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. This book is written about why some people fulfill their potential and some people don't. It's a very binary way of looking at these things. It's either a fixed mindset based on limited thinking, or a growth mindset based on abundance and limitless thinking, which can, by the way, be taught. Growth mindset is, according to the author, actually more scientifically valid. Whatever that means. I believe it maybe. That's because I try to practice one myself, which again, it really isn't natural. Many people will say that growth mindset was a missing link in their lives before having gotten this book. I'm obsessed with growth. Like, it's the dominant thing I think about. Like, how can I change? How can I grow? How can other people grow? What needs to change? How can I get them to want to grow without being rude about it? Let's briefly review what the 8 chapters are before we briefly review the 8 chapters themselves. Chapter 1 is the mindsets. Chapter 2 is inside the mindsets. Chapter 3 is the truth about ability and accomplishment. Chapter 4 is about how the mindsets apply to sports. Chapter 5 is how the mindsets apply to business. Chapter 6 is about how the mindsets apply to relationships. Chapter 7 is about how it applies to parenting and teaching and coaching. And chapter 8 is changing mindsets. Chapter 1 talks about what makes the two different mindsets, and how they're two and they are different from each other. Chapter 2, it's about like what is on the inside, what are the causes of these things. It seems like the book is basically saying, okay, look, none of this is what people call natural. It is all fake. It is plastic. You cannot sit with this at lunch unless you are wearing pink and it is a Wednesday. It's basically saying that these people are not just like this. They're not amazing by default. It took a certain mindset that was cultivated over time. The difference is between the two mindsets seem to be constantly stressed and stretched and folded like taffy throughout the book. What's weird is that a fixed mindset is classified as like an either-or type of thing, but this book is about the two mindsets, fixed and growth. And it's like either fixed and growth, and I'm like, so which one is the book supposed to be? The chapter stresses that the two main differences between the mindsets are how they view failure and how they view effort. Chapter 3 is about how success and what we're able to do up front really don't have anything to do with each other. It's about how schools, where kids being like, this is the lamest thing ever. No one cares about Shakespeare anymore. We just want to look at office memes. To young adults with mental retardation reading and summarizing 23 books a summer. I'm not talking about myself. I was diagnosed with Asperger's, 6 years ago almost? If anything, the author has a very inquisitive writing style, jokingly reflecting on, for example, discomforting moments of her childhood that helped her to develop her growth mindset over the years. She also explains in this chapter some of the things that negative labels will tend to do to your mindset over time. Here's a little spoiler about that. They are not good things. She gives us so many examples of so many people, of course, throughout the book. This is a non-fiction book. It's like a multi-100-page essay. I'm not sure why she wouldn't do this. Chapter 4 is about these two mindsets with sports, the differences between failure and success with the two mindsets, and the do-or-die situations that kind of create character in an athletic hero of a sort. Chapter 5 talks about these mindsets in business together, and of course referencing studies from Good to Great by Jim Collins. It talks about fixed mindset leadership in action, yes, even from like very successful companies, and that of growth-minded leadership. This does involve the CEO ego problem, and this chapter also kind of talks about how to kind of shift your company more to a growth mindset, culturally speaking. Chapter 6 talks about the two mindsets in relationships, and I've listened to so many of these books, and like, very few of the ones I listen to are about relationships. So the concept of relationships in personal development is very strange to me. It's not exactly what I expected of it. I don't really know what I expected of this chapter, but there are misconceptions that came with it. But it does go over the type of things that sort of haunt you when you have a fixed mindset set in relationships. It also talks about all of that in terms of friendships too, and bullying in school. Chapter 7 talks about the same thing except with parenting, teaching, and coaching. It's interesting how the results of these two mindsets will make them look differently from how you expect them to. A lot of this book seems to be about what really is likely to happen as time passes, when the ways you look at your life and the way you experience your life are the way that they are. The actual how of like what to do on how to change mindsets and how to identify what needs to be changed, that's talked about in chapter 8. I like to look at the negative reviews on Audible when it comes to these books and kind of see what I think of those. Because if you're spending your hard-earned money on any book, I think it's important, even if it's someone else's hard-earned money that they gave you as a gift, to be selfish. Be selfish. Get as much as you can out of this book. Don't focus on what you don't like about it. If you're gonna focus on that, do it in a way that you can get something out of. Get the most bang for your buck if you're gonna buy any book like this. I mean, people thought this audiobook sounds like it was read by a robot. This book was not read by a robot. If you want to listen to a robot reading a book, check out Power vs. Force by David Hawkins, okay? Someone said that it was overly optimistic because this book makes promises that are backed up by wishful thinking and not science. I'll admit it, this book is not really like, the contents are not nearly scientific enough to explain why mindset is, really like legit the new psychology of success, okay? But actually, wishful thinking, the last time I checked, that does yield actual results, actually is an actual science itself. And actually, the greatest flaw of this book, in my opinion, is that it can't really seem to break down why that is clearly enough. The concept is a bit drab in terms of uniqueness. I'll admit that. The organization is pretty dope. Someone else said it's too repetitive, but the repetition only in my eyes reflects in the topic itself throughout the book. The variety of settings in which the author presents it is what anyone who says it's repetitive to me may or may not be missing. Quotes, "It's not only about the people who start out the smartest, but those who end up the smartest. When you're lying on your deathbed, one of the really cool things to say is, I really explored myself. If you are somebody when you're successful, what are you when you're unsuccessful?" It wasn't that he didn't like to fail, it was that he didn't know how to fail. Choosing a partner is like choosing a set of problems. When he starts calling you an asshole, don't listen. But when he starts telling you why you're an asshole, listen. Beware of success. It can knock you into a fixed mindset. Direction 1. I recommend this book if you think there's something kind of wrong with, for lack of a better word, the mindsets of yourself, another person, or a team of people that you or they work with, and you don't really know what to do about it. Direction 2. If you like this book, I recommend checking out The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins to really cultivate a habit that I like to think people with a growth mindset tend to develop. That and Dare to Lead by Brené Brown about courageous leadership, which also kind of surrounds that habit if you were to really like apply the 5-second rule to your life constantly, which I very highly recommend checking out if you are someone who has anxiety. That book has there's a chapter in that book about someone who used the 5-second rule to convince themselves not to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. I think Mel Robbins started crying in the recording of the audiobook, actually. Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. There's a link to that and all the other books that I mentioned in this video. If there are any books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. And also let me know if you checked out this book and you like it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button if you haven't already for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know why people watch these far into my videos and they don't subscribe. Maybe I'll learn about it in a book someday. And if you would turn on that little notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.